What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at the ever so popular S&P 500 ETF SPY, ticker symbol SPY, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Friday, May 31st. All right, guys, well, SPY here today down $3.49 per share. That's minus 0.66% in regular trading hours, essentially flat, just down a few cents here in the after hours. As always, volume is going to be low. Take that with a bit of a grain of salt. But we have a big day here tomorrow. We get PCE inflation data. Now, if you're unaware, guys, PCE is the inflation metric, core PCE to be more specific, is the inflation metric that the Fed goes off of. So when the Fed says we want 2% inflation, core PCE is what they're looking at. So here are the forecast expectations for you here. This comes out 1 hour before the market opens. That's 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. The forecast for the year-over-year number is 2.7%. Month-over-month is 0.3%. Core year-over-year, 2.76%. And core month-over-month is 0.25%. Now, at that same time, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, we get U.S. consumer spending month-over-month. Forecast for that is 0.3%. At 12:05, the Fed's William is expected to start speaking. And at 6:15 Eastern, the Fed's Bostic is expected to start speaking. Now, let's get started here, guys. Let's take a look at the volume profile. We're going to do everything we can to try to pull out directional bias from all these different sources. The psychological levels, the implied volatility, the expected move for tomorrow, and finally, the directional bias out of the chain. So let's start here with that volume profile analysis here on the 5-minute chart. By the way, guys, hey, if you're new here, SPY is a daily upload. First of all, welcome. And that being the case, I hope to see you subscribe to the channel. Please do so. My goal here is 10,000, and I will keep the SPY videos coming daily. So if we take a quick look at the volume profile, what we're looking for is out of context volume that leaves us with a bias. Now, the open, very contextual, fades off quick. As we move through the day, these little single bar pops are too risky to assign anything to. All right, but as we headed into the close here, see this bar here? First of all, that's going to be a rebalancing bar. You can see that that's the first bar, or the last bar, I should say, before the closing bell. I tend to ignore those. As we look here, there could be some bears making an argument of bearish bias. However, I think a big part of that look comes in the after hours, like this part of that pyramid. If you cut out the after hours, it's actually not all that out of context, okay? It's also broken up by a couple of green bars. I wouldn't be able to assign any bias to that. Perhaps what we did see is a small amount of bearish bias after the close. However, you also have to understand, especially on SPY, that first bar after the closing bell as well is going to see some spillover rebalancing volume, okay? And every once in a while, it spills over to the second 5-minute bar after the close. So take that as you will. If there is any bearish bias there, it's incredibly light. Now, let's move on here. Let's take a look at the psychological self-fulfilling prophecy levels that a lot of trading decisions are going to be made around here tomorrow. Okay, so we have the 30-minute chart. Gray line's the 200 period. White line's the 50 period. You can see here, guys, we tested the 50 off the open, rejected. Tried to get above it, gave it up before the close. So bears, a little bit sloppy out of you guys here today, but you were able to come through and hold that off. So here's what we're looking for tomorrow. Bears, you want to see a continuation of this exact occurrence here tomorrow, but ideally any new retest, you'd like to see that rejection be a little bit cleaner than it was today. And bulls, ideally, if we could rip up through the 50 on high volume, back test it on much lower volume, and then bounce again on high volume, that would be a break, test, confirmation of support, and that could leave us in a situation where we could end up in the near term moving upside using that 50 as support to move upside toward a test of that 200 period. Now, if we take a look at the 4-hour, guys, you can see here on the 4-hour, we're currently about 1.26% away from a downside test of the 200 period, and we're about the same, actually, 1.26% approximately to the upside away from a test of the 50 period. So I'm not paying tremendous attention to the 4-hour. Anything over a 1% move on SPY is a more volatile day in either direction. But understand, guys, that, you know, one of these levels is going to come into play likely in the near future, whether that's the ETF making a move upside or downside or moving sideways while that channel collapses. just be aware that bulls, ideally, we'd make an upside test of that 50 period so we can get outside to the upside of both of those. Whereas bears, your goal is to break downside through the 200 period, right? Get down beneath both of those levels. So that's all I'm really looking at here in the near future. But anything else, we can do a lot better on the daily. All right, so let's take a look. Now, 530, guys, was a tremendous level. The last couple of days we spent pulling back. So bears, you guys are setting up for that big test of 520 that we've been talking about. And that's the last level in your guys' way, the last potential support before that ultimate goal of yours, which is the 50-day moving average. You bears want to see a break downside of the 50. That can start tomorrow with a downside break of 520. That would be a great thing for you bears, is to break downside 520, hold that as resistance, set you up for a downside test of the 50-day. All right, bulls, any test of 520, I want to see that bounce, ideally getting back above 525, which is a smaller psychological level, right? That can set us up for another honest test of 530 in the near future, which the ultimate goal here is to get back above 530, really out of that channel from about 530 to 532 that we struggled with so much previously. Now, implied volatility, particularly important if you're trading options, up a little bit here today. Compared to the last week, it is very high. Compared to the last month, I would argue that we're still relatively high if you take the entirety of the month. We spent the vast majority of the last month much lower than where we currently are. And now, in comparison to the last 3 months, guys, I would say we're in the mid-range, maybe even getting a little bit to the mid to higher range. Okay, understand that if you're trading options, it's very important to be aware of all that. Now, the expected move for tomorrow, we have the luxury of daily expirations here on SPY. So the expected move by tomorrow's close compared to today's close is plus or minus $3.21 a share. That's the one standard deviation expected volatility being priced into SPY by the traders for tomorrow. Now, directional bias, okay? What's the mark? That's the volatility bias. Important to understand if you're trading options, I suppose, and shares, but especially with options because it does influence the pricing of the contracts. What about directional bias, though? Let's look at volume. Just under 7 million contracts traded today. Of those, we had 3.15 million calls and 3.82 million puts. A bit of a bearish bias on the overall ratio. If we break that down by short-term speculators, look by looking at the 0 to 20 delta range, 1.23 million calls and 1.6 million puts. Bearish bias out of the short-term speculators here on SPY today as well. Listen, guys, one of the last opportunities to get grandfathered in at the current rate for our private community. In there, every day I'm sending out my personal scalp setup alerts, in-play stock alerts, unusual options activity, working with my Platinum one-on-one students. Again, that link that'll let you get grandfathered in at the current rate. It will be going up very soon now. But the price you join at is the price that you stay at, even after it goes up. So I appreciate you guys. If you're enjoying the daily SPY analysis videos, please leave a like on the video and then get out of here and enjoy your day. Helps out tremendously, and I'll see you in the next one.